What if I told you Conor McGregor is still one of the biggest names in MMA, but not because of fighting? Think about that for a second. His last UFC win was over 4 years ago.
My name is Conor McGregor and I live in Lucan. I'm a professional MMA fighter with a record of 4-1. It's all I do. I train twice a day. That's all I think about. I don't want to do anything else. It's as simple as that. I'm an up-and-coming fighter, and without a doubt, you will see me on the UFC in the near future, without a doubt.
Champion, the one, the only, the notorious
And yet, his name is still louder than champions who fight, win, and dominate today. And remember his own words after losing to Dustin Poirier? He said, "This is not over." But maybe it already is. Because here's the truth. Conor McGregor's relevance today doesn't come from belts, victories, or dominance in the cage. It comes from chaos, from controversy, from scandals that have nothing to do with fighting. That's the harsh reality. Conor McGregor is louder than ever, but not for the reasons any fighter should want. And the UFC knows this. Look at the UFC's upcoming White House card. It's supposed to be historic, a global showcase for the sport.
We're going to have a UFC fight. We're going to have a UFC fight. Think of this on the grounds of the White House.
Yet somehow, McGregor's name still finds its way into the conversation, not because of recent wins, but because his name alone sells tickets, headlines, and clicks. That's the power of celebrity. A fighter with no victories in years still tied to the biggest event the UFC has ever attempted. That's not legacy, that's marketing. Then there's the endless talk about Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor, Part 3. Fans would buy it, the UFC would sell it. But here's the issue. This is a rivalry from 2016, 9 years ago. If the only way to make McGregor relevant in 2025 is to recycle a feud from nearly a decade ago, then it shows just how far his fighting career has fallen. That's not competition, that's nostalgia. And nostalgia is the only thing keeping his career alive. Let's talk numbers, because numbers don't lie. McGregor's last UFC victory was in January 2020 against Donald "Cowboy" Cerrone, 4 years ago. Since then, he's been stopped by Dustin Poirier and suffered that horrific broken leg in their trilogy fight. The truth is unavoidable. His resume has collapsed. He's no longer feared for his power or his precision. He's not remembered for knockouts anymore. He's remembered for interviews, scandals, and trouble outside the cage. And that brings us here to the courtroom. In 2025, McGregor lost a civil court case in Ireland connected to a sexual assault lawsuit. He appealed, and he lost again. This isn't rumor. This isn't speculation. This is fact. A legal judgment, public record, the kind of stain you can't just shake off. Think about it. The man who once demanded respect inside the octagon is now being judged inside a courtroom. And sometimes the hardest punches aren't thrown by opponents. They come from reality itself. And when it's not the courts, it's his own behavior online. In July this year, McGregor made headlines again, not for a fight announcement, but for being accused by singer Azealia Banks of sending explicit photos. The story exploded online, and just like that, the biggest McGregor headline wasn't about a comeback, a rivalry, or even a training camp. It was another scandal. This has become the pattern. Every few months, his name trends, not for fighting, but for drama. And here's the problem. Scandals can keep you relevant, but scandals don't build legacy. Of course, the money keeps him in the conversation. The whiskey business, the yachts, the mansions. Conor McGregor is richer than most fighters could ever dream of. He doesn't need the UFC anymore. But here's the twist. The UFC still needs him. Because McGregor is still the biggest pay-per-view draw in the company's history. Every time his name headlines a card, the numbers jump. And that's where the conflict lies. Profit versus integrity. Do you chase the money or do you protect the sport? So far, the UFC has made its choice, and it isn't integrity, it's cash every time, and you can't really blame them. But ask yourself this, at what cost? While McGregor stays in the spotlight, hungry young contenders, the next generation of champions, are waiting in the shadows. Fighters who are actually winning, who are climbing the rankings, who deserve the stage. But the sport keeps circling back to one man, even as his prime fades further away. And then there's Ireland. Once upon a time, McGregor was celebrated as a national hero. He was the man who put Irish MMA on the global map. But now, politicians are questioning him. Local media challenges him. Even the fans who once waved the Irish flag with pride are starting to look the other way.
If he did make the presidency ticket,
Jesus Christ, I'd leave the country. I'd be gone.
When your own country begins to doubt you, that says everything. So what does all of this mean? It means the UFC is selling drama instead of dominance. It means the younger generation, killers in the making, are stuck waiting for their chance. It means the sport itself is at risk of becoming more entertainment than competition. Because when the biggest headlines in MMA aren't about fights, but about lawsuits and scandals, that's not good for the sport. Now, of course, McGregor's defenders will argue. They'll say he changed the game. And they're right, he did. He knocked out Jose Aldo in 13 seconds. He demolished Eddie Alvarez to become the first double champion in UFC history. He carried MMA into mainstream culture in a way nobody else had before. That's all true, that's history. But history doesn't win fights today. History doesn't excuse scandal. At some point, history stops being an achievement and starts being a weight. And right now, that weight is dragging down both McGregor and the UFC. So here's the reality. Conor McGregor is still relevant. But he's relevant for all the wrong reasons. And that's not the legacy he once dreamed of. That's not the destiny he promised his fans. It's the tragedy of wasted potential. Fame built him a fortress. But now that fortress looks less like a palace and more like a cage. So the question is this. Should the UFC keep giving him the spotlight, or is it finally time to move on? Because relevance without responsibility isn't greatness, it's just noise. So what do you think? Is Conor McGregor still a superstar, or is he just living off the shadow of his past? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this debate isn't over, it starts with you.